I'm not ready. They're not ready. I should box one of these up and send it to the house. Attention to Gary.
You know, this project beat out Boulder Highway BRT because of their fucking bridge line. Big deal. This is big deal. We had a 60% increase in ridership on Boulder Highway. Did you know that? After they launched the two services.
And this is
They got a new bridge.
this is cool though, Mike. Different. You know?
And we get credit for it anyway. We funded it. So that's all right. It's fun. I don't want to sound big.
I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome you out to the Regional Transportation Commission meeting. Mr. Snow.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Your agenda is in order and ready for approval.
Move approval.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the agenda for today by Commissioner G. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Item number 2 is to receive the General Manager's report. Before I get started with the items that I had planned for that to present to you, I would like to just discuss briefly with the Commission an issue that I've had a chance to, I think, speak to all of you now about since Tuesday night. It was my privilege to be appointed by the City of Henderson as their new city manager, subject to some contract negotiations that are taking place now. I intend to accept that offer of employment. I'm very excited about those prospects. I do, however, have in my hand a list of 27 regional transportation commissioners that I've had the pleasure of working with over the past 13 years. And I can say with great delight and ease that I find it very easy to come up with a number of wonderful things to say about all of them. And all of you are included in that. Me and my family have been so fortunate to have had this opportunity to work for you. And it has been a remarkable thing that I think that we have together accomplished. We built more than 50 miles of freeways, thousands of miles of local and major arterial roadways. We have taken a transit system that I believe is one of the Federal Transit Administration recognizes it as the most cost efficient in the country and has received numerous awards and accolades. Together with our partners at the cities and the county and the Nevada Department of Transportation, we built a traffic management system that is unique and is an example to the rest of the country about how to manage traffic in the most efficient, cost-effective fashion as embodied in the freeway and arterial system of transportation. I will be I think the thing that I will miss the most will be the fantastic staff that we have put together over the years. They do a great job, and they have propped me up and made me look good over the years. They've done a terrific job. And I'd just like to tell you that I think that the lady to my left, Christina Quigley, our current Deputy General Manager, she's been in that position for 7 years. She's done a phenomenal job. She enjoys the support of the staff, and I would certainly endorse her to you as an interim general manager, and I think you couldn't do any better than to have her as your permanent general manager. I don't get to vote, though. That's just my recommendation. I think she would do a terrific job, and it's been my pleasure to, once again, to work for you and to receive your direction, and the community, I think, owes you as well a great deal of thanks, and I express that to you right now, so thank you very much. We do have a couple of presentations to make as part of the general manager's report, and so if we can go to the first slide. I'd like to take a moment to discuss what we've talked about over the last couple of meetings. That's the West Mesquite Interchange Design Build Project. Sometimes we refer to that as the Mesquite Bridge Slide, and we've talked about that, and you can see a diagram of that, and that, of course, is the one that was done with the dish soap. But we're pleased to note that the Nevada chapter of the Institute of Transportation Engineers has awarded their Transportation Project of the Year award to the City of Mesquite and the Nevada Department of Transportation for this project, which was primarily funded with RTC dollars. So we'd like to congratulate Susan Martinovich from the Nevada Department of Transportation, as well, and especially Councilman Craig Hafen from the City of Mesquite for the reception of this award. We don't have the award physically with us, but we would like to recognize you for the great efforts that have gone into that project that I understand is ahead of schedule and will be completed, I believe, in about a month and a half or so. Substantial completion. So congratulations, Councilman. Congratulations, Director Martinovich. With that, Mr. Chairman, that constitutes the General Manager's report, and we're ready to go on to item number 3, which is to receive the Nevada Department of Transportation Director's report.
Before we get into that, is this your last meeting? Or do you feel there's going to be one more?
I honestly don't know, but I expect that there's a very good chance that it could be, and I don't have a date that I can give to the Commission at this point in time, but I suspect that I will begin my service at the City of Henderson subject to a vote of the City Council, I think, at the next meeting on my contract. So I suspect I'll begin sometime in the month of April, probably early April.
Do you think if you're not here for the next one, but they'll let you come back maybe for a meeting? Because they're pretty tough out there.
There's a bus that goes right by City Hall, and I'm sure that I know how to pay for the service on that.
I think we could probably let him come.
All right. Sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Since this is a day of folks coming and going, I also read in the paper yesterday that Director Martinovich is planning on retiring. Do you mind elaborating a little bit more on that? And I just want to say I've enjoyed working with you in this capacity, and I think you've done a very good job of bringing the state far more open and not so isolated and perceived by people that it's just up in Carson City. And so I have to commend you for that part of it.
Commission, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, I'll be retiring at the end of August, first part of September, so that's still 6 months away, so don't do your happy dance quite yet. But I truly have enjoyed the opportunity to be part of this board and work with you all, and especially the relationship that we've had with Jacob and Tina. I think that working together, we have been able to accomplish so much, and that's the beauty of what we've done, especially with all of the entities. So I'm saddened, but actually very excited, because opportunities really are endless, and so looking forward to the future. But thank you. A couple other items I would like to mention is that there's a lot of talk in Washington regarding a national highway bill. The existing continuing resolution that we're working under expires March 31st, and that's actually a cliff for us, is that if nothing is done, the Department of Transportation will have to hold up projects that are federally funded, because our understanding is that there won't even be anybody in the Federal Highway Administration office to pay the reimbursement of the construction contracts. So I can't afford to have the state use state monies to hold the loan, basically, for the Federal Highway Administration. So we're really taking a close look at that and seeing what the impact is. And unfortunately, sometimes it costs more to stop things and then get them started again. And so we take a really good look to make sure that we're maximizing or minimizing that impact. In the realm, the Senate, under the leadership of Senator Reid, is moving forward with a bill, and it maintains the existing levels that we've enjoyed and it's a 2-year highway bill. There were hundreds of amendments that were proposed for the Senate bill, but under a vote, they've limited to 30 amendments, which is a very good thing. So my understanding is they'll be slogging through those today, tomorrow, and then hopefully the Senate will be taking up a vote early next week. The House is a little problematic, is that they've gone anywhere from a 5-year bill with a 30% cut to a 5-year bill maintaining existing levels to a 2-year bill, 2.5-year bill, a lot of differences and concerns. Heard rumor that, not rumor, but it was mentioned in one of the papers that the leader of the Republican side on the House said that if they can't get together, they may end up just trying to pass the Senate bill, because they all understand the urgency of getting a transportation bill. So we're just hoping that something occurs that we don't have to shut down the projects. On a bigger picture, if there is no bill by the end of this year, that's even more problematic, because the current highway bill as it is, if it's just continued to be funded under the continuing resolution without no funding identified, the National Highway Trust Fund will run out of money. And so it'll take a big drop from what's right now at about $52 billion nationally available to states to somewhere in the realm of $11 billion. And so that is a tremendous impact to the funding that states get. So what that means, though, basically for Nevada, and what the Department of Transportation is doing, working with our partners, is that we don't know when or how much or the criteria for any of the money that we're going to get. So we are still moving forward and working to get projects ready, because I believe that they won't let transportation fail. It's too critical to jobs, it's too critical to the economy of the nation, and so we're just working to be in a position to have projects ready to go when we get the money, and that's what we're moving forward with. But we'll see what happens on March 31st. Another item is, I mentioned last week, we've been working really hard to reach our goal of 0 fatalities. And I mentioned last month that the 2011 numbers went down. Unfortunately, we're on an uptick for 2012 compared to last year. And so just felt that it would be a good opportunity to show you 2 things. One is just really to hit home again, that pay attention when people are driving, and the other is why we chose 0 as our goal. So this video also is really cool, as it's being used nationally. We created it, and Federal Highway Administration is using it nationally for their training, as well as other states.
I don't know, probably more than 20,000, I would assume.
100,000.
I'm gonna say a lot, so probably around, say like 1 million.
400.
75,000?
50,000.
I want to say a couple 100,000.
How about 1,000?
Millions. Millions.
Hundreds?
I don't have an idea, but I think it's a lot of people.
Probably about 400,000.
Probably 200,000.
Oh, golly. I think it's maybe around 35,000 these days, something like that.
Drunk driving or impaired driving.
Texting and driving.
Inattention.
Distractions, alcohol.
Alcohol. Alcohol related for sure. I think it's eye-opening after moving and living in Las Vegas for the past year, how many fatalities and crashes I've seen personally due to alcohol related.
I'd say not paying attention to other people on the road.
For driving, driving test.
People are irresponsible in driving. They don't pay attention. They have distractions from like cell phones to put makeup on to just eating. See, I'm a full-time pedestrian, so because I'm legally blind. So I've almost got hit several times just in the crosswalk just because people are not paying attention when they turn right.
Speeding, no seatbelts, things like that.
I've heard drunken driving and then fatigue are the two big ones, perhaps.
Someday in the future, probably.
No, not going to happen.
No, not at all. I don't think it's realistic. But I do think that if we work towards reaching that goal, that we will decrease the amount of fatalities.
Absolutely not. This is humanity.
No.
No, not with as many cars and not with, the amount of people here.
Yeah, if people stop using their phones while they're driving.
It's not incredibly likely, but it's always good to strive for perfection.
If we can get it under 1,000, that would be cool.
I would say we could at least cut it in half of what it is now.
I have no idea. 2.
If the number was down to 10, I think that'd be good.
Acceptable would be anything lower than what it is now. Say maybe 1,000.
I think our goal for fatalities needs to be brought down at least 50% in the next couple of years.
10.
Under 5,000.
Like under 100.
Less than we have now, I suppose.
Okay.
Zero?
Zero.
Well, you'd have to say 0 for that.
For my family, personally, 0. That's acceptable for my family.
0.
None.
0.
0.
0.
0.
None.
0.
0.
None.
Oh, obviously we'd hope for 0.
0, okay.
Yeah.
0.
0. You leave the house, you come back to it at the end of the day, I feel like.
So,
Yes. Sure, yeah. That'd be great.
Yes.
It should be, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. I think there should be 0.
I mean, yeah, you have to aim high, I would say.
It should be 0.
That should definitely be the goal. I absolutely agree, yes. That should be the goal, 0 fatalities.
so there we go. That's why we did it. What is the goal for your family? 0. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes NDOT's report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We now go to item number 4, which is your first citizens' participation public comment agenda item.
Okay, thank you. If you wish to speak during the public comment periods, please fill out a public comment card. Our first public comment period is limited to items that are on today's agenda only. If you'd like to speak on an item that is under the Commission's preview but is not on today's agenda, we'll have you speak at the second public comment period at the end of the meeting. Our time limit is for 3 minutes for today. It's very, here she comes. Thank you. Jose?
Good morning, Commissioners. First of all, the ATU wants to wish Mr. Snow the best at his new position as City Manager for the City of Henderson. As you all know, I am President Jose Mendoza Jr. for the ATU Local 1637, and we have addressed some concern on the previous meetings regarding the splitting of the systems. I just want to run down just a couple items that I have, more than a couple items. The ATU is still opposing the splitting of the system. The ATU will file a 13C complaint based on the fact that the protection under the seniority clause of 13C will be impacted. Also, the ATU, we want to be part of the RFP process since RTC does put some kind of language in there that in the end it affects also the bargaining unit, so we want to be part of the RFP. We also want to make sure that with a new manager that comes on board, that hopefully, eventually down the road, which, you know, we are never going to have a permanent employer. We're always going to have temporary employers in the way that the system is set up right now. So we're hoping that we could work something out with the RTC as part of the bargaining unit to become public quasi-employees. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else has a desire to speak to the RTC board? Seeing none. Consent agenda, Mr. Snow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Next is your consent agenda, which is made up of items 5 through 26, which may be taken in one motion if so desired.
There's a motion on the floor of Mayor Tobler to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, item number 5.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. We'll now go to the administration and finance portion of your agenda, and we'll begin with item 27, which is to receive recommendations from the Fair Working Group and direct staff accordingly. Now, last year, as you're aware, we've had a tough economic year with the recession, and we've seen our sales tax, which is the primary source of funding that we have to support our transit system, be reduced by $40 million since 2007. And because of that and the issues that we have experienced with our paratransit service, and if you're following along on the hard copy, it's easier to see this graph, but we have had what we feel is an unsustainable growth curve in the last 3 years with our paratransit service, where it's up more than 30% now. And we'd like to point out that the reason for that is increased demand. We had a lot of trips that were performed with assistance from the state for adult daycare, for senior citizens going to adult daycare centers, and now we have assumed those trips. And it used to be a few years ago that the average cost of a paratransit trip was about $45 to the RTC. Now, working with our contractor and a couple of different amendments, we have managed to cut the average cost of a ride on paratransit to $37. So we would like to recognize that this is the result of an increased demand, and we have been able to work with our contractor to reduce costs with a couple of different amendments that we brought to the board over the last 2 years. But to address the concern that we have about what we feel is an excessive strain on our transit budget, which has caused us to cut fixed route service for a number of years, and we, as you're well aware, we have another round of service cuts pending. We decided to form a fair policy working group, and we put that group together and had last year, and we had the first meeting in October of last year. And we had, previous to that, a lot of concern. If we can go back to the slide, the previous slide. One of the ways that we've dealt with that over the past year was to reduce the size of your paratransit service area, and there were some significant negative impacts associated with that as well. We also considered an option to eliminate the unlimited monthly pass on paratransit. We received a lot of concerns from the community and from our advisory committees about that. We did come up with a way to help alleviate some of those concerns with getting up to a 56% per trip, per eligible trip reimbursement from Medicaid. We still are pursuing those efforts with the federal government. The state's been a good partner in that. We are now waiting final approval of that from the federal government. You'll hear more about that in your presentation for you from the Fair Working Group in just a moment. If we can go to the next slide. We did convene the Fair Working Group in October, and we tasked the group with developing policy and fair recommendations for you as the board. And when we started putting this group together, we thought we had a budget shortfall in the area of $10 million. When we finally got them together, it was down to $9 million, thanks to some improvements in the economy. But going forward, we think that this group was well equipped to tackle this challenging task. It was made up of a variety of stakeholders, and you can see their names on the screen here, professionals who are vested in the success of the RTC and the improvement of mobility for Southern Nevada's residents and visitors. Very diverse group. And at this point, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. John Tennant, who is a senior management analyst with Clark County's Department of Comprehensive Planning. John was a member of the group, and John is a frequent rider of the fixed route transit system. And I would just like to point out for the record, John is a county employee, but he did use his own vacation time to participate in this group, and we're very grateful to him for doing so, and he will be making this presentation to you. John?
Good morning. John Tennant for the record. I just wanted to thank you and the Commission for allowing me to talk to you today about our work with the Fair Working Group. And before I begin, I'd just like to say that the staff of the RTC did an excellent job, provided us a tremendous amount of information, often on very short time frames, and did a great job of coordinating and corralling the group around some very difficult issues. To begin with, we started the process associated with the Fair Working Group by getting just some background overview information about the structure of the RTC and its budget and function. As Jacob mentioned, we started out with a $9 million shortfall. That was brought down to about 8.3 as a result of the discussions with the state and some improvements in the economy. Still, the RTC estimates that roughly 210 to 240,000 paratransit riders will be eligible for reimbursement through the Medicaid process as part of that discussion. So the improvement in the sales tax came in much higher as well. The other thing that they talked to us about was some of the cuts in both service and in times of routes that they had to make since 2009 as a result of the decline in the economy. One thing that was striking was that these cuts amounted to about 250,000 service hours for the fixed route transit system. This included reducing frequency of routes, shortening times of days, and eliminating routes altogether. They did this all along the course of also having to do some fare increases as well. So it was unfortunate that we had to come back and again consider some of these issues again, and that just speaks to the nature of the difficult economy that we're currently in. Another issue that they talked to us about was the dramatic increase in demand of the paratransit system that the RTC has been facing. So we reviewed that, and they discussed with us the disparity between the costs associated with running the fixed route service and the paratransit service, and we really spent a lot of time trying to grapple with how to manage that disparity while at the same time providing services to the most needy in our community. Now, before I get into our recommendations, I just want to talk about the different segments that we learned about associated with the transit ridership of the RTC. The first segment is the general market fixed route segment. These are generally locals. These are people that primarily use all routes aside from the Strip, Downtown Express, and the Deuce on the Strip. These are folks that are typically transit dependent and are very sensitive to price. The next group is the resort corridor fixed route. This is the group that's primarily visitors. Generally, this route, one of the things that was interesting to me this is one of the only routes, not just in Southern Nevada, but in the nation, that actually generates a surplus above and beyond operating costs. So we are fortunate that we have a part of our service that actually helps subsidize the general market rate. One of the things we recognized we needed to do is, given the sensitivity and the importance of this route to the overall general fixed market, was to make sure that we didn't propose increases that would otherwise reduce the service or price out some of these folks as we move forward. And then the last segment is the ADA paratransit service. These are generally locals. These are folks that are in fragile, both physical condition and typically fragile economically. and they're very sensitive and impacted disproportionately by either cuts in services or in increases in fares. And so, again, we paid particular attention to the impacts that any fare changes or policy recommendations we made would have on this segment of the community. And so as a result, I think it's important to really emphasize what this slide says, which was the group placed a preeminent emphasis on ensuring equity across all segments of the ridership of the RTC, and to be as fair as possible and make sure that any increases in fares or any impacts of services were spread across all users, regardless of segment. And so as I walk through our recommendations, you'll see that in fact those recommendations reflect that commitment to equity. So to start with, we'll start with the recommendations. The first is recommendations associated with the Strip corridor. We made two primary recommendations associated with this segment. The first is to increase the 24-hour pass from $7 to $8. This is estimated to generate roughly $1.4 million in additional revenue for the RTC. Second, we recommend increasing the Strip route, the 2-hour pass, from $5 to $6, and this will generate an additional $367,000. It's important to note that while we recommended these increases to the Strip routes, other primarily local general market RTC riders are still eligible for the general fixed market rates if they use the general passes. Moving to the general market fixed full fare, we recommend increasing the single fare ride from $2 to $2.25. This will generate an additional $600,000 in revenue. We also recommend aligning the fixed or revising the fixed route general market reduced fare discount from 50% to 40%. Now, as we start, some of these recommendations get a little complicated, and not being a transportation expert, I'll try not to mess this up, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night, so hopefully it'll go well. As you know, the ADA specifically requires that transit agencies like the RTC offer their single fare at a discount of at least 50%. This does not extend to any of the other fare passes or reduced rates that the RTC or transit agencies may offer, because things like a reduced fare monthly pass already have inherent discounts built into them. And so we recommend that after considerable discussion, that the single ride obviously remain at a 50% discount, but that all the other fare passes should be offered at a 40% discount. We estimate, or RTC staff estimated, that this would save about $1.3 million annually. Next, staying with the general market fares, we recommend increasing the general market monthly pass from $65 to $70. And we also recommended that the RTC consider introducing a 15-day pass for $36, recognizing that increasing these monthly passes and given the nature of the primary ridership, that it may be difficult for folks to come up with the $70 in one chunk, and this will give people the option of having a lower fee or a lower rate to be able to make that discount work. Now, moving into discussion of the paratransit service segment, one of the things we spent a lot of time talking about was how to address this disparity in costs associated with providing the paratransit service in our community while maintaining, trying to maintain the current service that we have. As Jacob noticed, the current policy is that the RTC offers an unlimited monthly paratransit pass. After getting lots of information about how this pass works, the Fair Working Group recommended that the RTC replace this unlimited pass with a pass that has a sufficient number of rides to allow passengers to travel to and from work each day in a given month. And we estimated this is about 46 passes. So if you look at the normal 5-day work week, estimate the number of trips you would need to go to and from work on a daily basis, we estimated that be about 46 rides. The group also felt that a fare option with fewer trips would be valuable for those who ride less often or can't afford the $100 for 46 trips. And so we settled on 22 rides. This is estimated to save annually over $2 million. Now, probably all of the recommendations we made associated with fare increases, we recommend that those be implemented by September of 2012, should the board choose to move forward with those recommendations. This next recommendation, we recommended that it not take effect for another year until July of 2013, and I'll explain why in a moment. This is probably the most difficult recommendation to understand. I know it's taken me quite a while to wrap my head around it. We recommend fully aligning the fixed route and paratransit service boundaries and span of service. This is estimated to save about $1.9 million. Again, as you know, the ADA requires that the RTC provide paratransit service in the same areas where fixed route service is offered, in addition to a minimum of 3/4 of a mile beyond that fixed route system. And so on the map that's on your area, the fixed route service area is shown in orange, and that's the minimum mandatory area required. Prior to June of 2010, the RTC had gone above and beyond the requirements of the ADA by providing paratransit service to those living 1.5 miles beyond those fixed route service areas, and that was the red area that you see in the extension. As a result of the downturn in the economy, the board was forced to make the difficult decision of scaling back the paratransit service area to what is required by the ADA. However, there were an estimated 600 paratransit riders that were outside of that service area. The board at the time opted to grandfather in those clients and allow them to have access to the service in the near future. We were informed, however, that it was acknowledged at the time that this would be a temporary grandfathering, but there was no set time frame for which to end that grandfather. And as a result, the working group, after a significant amount of discussion, recommends that you fully eliminate that grandfather period and fully align the service at the current service area with the general fixed route area. And so this is the reason for extending the time frame of implementation of this, and this that would give those folks that are still in that grandfathered area some time to set up alternate arrangements in cooperation with the RTC to help them find ways to get from where they are outside of the service into the allowable service area in order to be able to use the paratransit service. The other aspect of the aligning the fixed route service area is not just the area, but also the times of service. As we understood, as was explained to us, while the fixed route system doesn't typically operate during overnight hours, the paratransit service operates all hours of the day. And so we recommend that you revise that span of service to be consistent with the area. And so these next series of maps will show you who and where will be impacted. The red is the current service area that paratransit riders are eligible for, and the orange will reflect the proposed changes. And so as we move forward, paratransit service would be ended between 10 and 11 p.m. in the red areas. As you go to 11 to 12 a.m., you can see the reduction, the proposed change. 12 to 1 a.m., 1 a.m. to 2 a.m., 2 a.m. to 3 a.m., and 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. And so this would fully align not only the service areas, but also the hours in which those service areas are operating under. And then finally, this last map shows the changes or the revisions in the general market service area, should you choose to adopt those moving forward. And I believe those have been proposed or will be being considered by the board at some time in the near future. So just a quick review of our recommendations. We recommend increasing the fixed route 24-hour pass from $7 to $8 on the strip, and the 2-hour pass from $5 to $6. For the general market, we recommend increasing the single ride from $2 to $2.25. Decrease the fixed route general market reduced fare discount from 50% to 40% for all other passes other than the single ride fare, and increase the fixed route general market full fare 30-day pass from $60 to $70, and also introduce a 15-day pass for $36. And for paratransit, we recommend replacing the unlimited monthly paratransit pass with a 46-trip per month pass and a 22-trip paratransit fare. And then we also recommend aligning the fixed route and paratransit service boundaries and span of service. We estimate, the RTC staff estimated that these recommendations in total would begin to save, or help save about approximately $8.3 million, which comes pretty much right on target with what was our charge in the, for the Fair Working Group. And so with that, that ends my segment of the presentation. I'm available to answer questions unless they're difficult or uncomfortable. In that case, Jacob and Tina can.
Well, let me ask the board, does the board want to discuss some of these individually, start from the front and go through, or want to wait for the final recommendations of the public hearings, or Commissioner G?
I think I'd like to at least comment on the different matters, because I think today we're not taking action. We're just going to start soliciting additional public comment based on these recommendations, correct?
That would be our recommendation to you if you would like to start that public process. We think that's the next best step.
I think that would be important, but I do have a couple comments, so just see however you want to handle it. You want me to go? Okay. When was our last rate increase? 2 years ago now?
I believe it was 2 years ago now on fixed routes,
On fixed
fairly
routes.
recent. And we did have last year a nominal increase on paratransit. We
Right.
went from an average fare of $2.96 to $3.
Okay. Do we know how many paratransit riders are going to work versus those that may be going to other medical needs and some things along those lines?
We can only by inference gather that information because the ADA prohibits us from asking about a trip purpose. So sometimes the riders will tell us on the phone that they need to go to work, but we can only ascertain that by inference.
Because I think some of the assumptions are that they are using it for going to work, but.
Yes. And many of them are, by inference.
And so, depending on the disability, some could be riding our regular routes rather than paratransit, but because it's still their option.
Many of them do, and we actually have that detailed information that we can provide you about
I'd
how
like to
many
see that
paratransit
again,
customers
yeah.
do take fixed route. And if either MJ or Sandy or Sue have that information off the top of their head, I'll ask them to come forward and share it with us. But I know we have that information.
Yeah, I can answer that question, Jacob. Last year, we transported about 11.4 million folks on fixed route that were identified that they had a disability and were using fixed route to get to and from their work or other destinations.
11.4 million
correct.
trips?
That's correct.
Okay. And how did we determine that?
By the fact that they used a reduced fare ID card. So if they used a reduced fare ID card or traveled for free, because if you're certified for paratransit, you can ride fixed route for free. So we were able to track the number of folks that were certified for paratransit.
And is that an increase then from what we've done in the past?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so
Yes,
the
we
PR
continue
that
to
we
see-
started to try to push did work, but apparently we still may have some additional work to do then as far as that's concerned.
Correct.
I personally don't care for increasing the fixed route rate again. I don't want to discourage people, and that's part of our whole debate on water is if you're conserving, why do we punish you? That's a whole nother day. But I think we want to look at that issue, and I think that was item number 3 that John had recommended. And I want to thank you as a county employee. You also were recognized for our Boy Scout thing the other day, so thank you for the work you do. But I think that was item 3, and I still have some concerns about that part of it.
Also, Commissioner, I just want to point out, on the work trips, there are also trips going to programs like Opportunity Village. So they may be folks going to work sites that have disabilities. So they're not necessarily
True, and I was going to
traditional.
come to that because I think Opportunity Village gets a special select opportunity to go to work that other disabled businesses may not, nonprofits may not. And I'd like to explore that further because I think that probably makes sense, but there may be a different ability to pay that we haven't captured to some extent, maybe organizationally. I do think we should be taking a look at with some of our businesses to see if there's other negotiated benefits that they could do to sponsor their folks for riding the fixed routes. I think Oregon was doing that. I got to go check my files again on that. And what do cabs, I know we did a cab coupon for our senior citizens years ago through aging. What is that booklet still? Does anybody know offhand?
Yes, it's about, well, it's 50%, so you can purchase a book that is valued at $60 for $30.
Okay, and that gets you how many trips in the cab?
They estimate about 10.
Then we haven't changed that at the state level then, and since I probably served there more than likely,
that's
so
correct,
that's been no increase. Are there any other, maybe you can also for the public hearings have, I'd like to see then what other potential places, Silver Star, Aging Commission, are there other places that we need to augment the paratransit part rather than increasing the fixed route side of it, and see if there's other ways we can divert people to that to get them to where they need to go as far as that's concerned. Tell me what 46 days or 46 trips per month is supposed to equate to.
Commissioner John Tenner. We estimated that was based on a rough estimate of if you take the average month, how many work days, assuming a 5-day work day, how many work days in a month, 2 trips per day.
Okay, so you got to 23
46.
approximately, yeah, 20.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the 22 trip would do the same thing on the other. Okay, those are just some questions that I had. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there any other questions? Councilwoman?
We're obviously seeing increased ridership in transit in Southern Nevada, which is a good thing, but it also, I think, speaks to the economy as well. And so I think it's important for us to be mindful and sensitive to what's happening in people's pocketbooks as we are making some of these decisions. I see the increased rates for the Strip, and that's really allowing the tourists to really bear a larger piece of the burden financially. I'm curious on the paratransit, the 11 p.m. to 4 a.m., I'd be curious to know what the ridership numbers are during that period of time. And obviously, we can't determine whether it's coming from work or what their purpose is, but I wonder, is that a route that we're required, or a time we're required to provide by the ADA?
If we have fixed route service operating during those hours, then we are required by the ADA to offer what is the actual legal term is complementary. And it doesn't mean free. It means it would complement where the fixed route service operates within a 3/4 of a mile barrier. So if we have fixed route operating anywhere during those hours, we must offer complimentary paratransit service within a 3/4 mile barrier around that line of the fixed route.
Oh, okay. And then I think it's very important that through this outreach process that we do reach into the at-risk populations, the fiscally and physically fragile folks, so that we make sure that we're hearing some of their concerns, because some of it may be financial, that these folks just don't have the resources, and I'd sure hate to keep them from work or from opportunities because they can't afford it or because they're physically challenged. Also, I think as I looked at the map and the reduction in the map, clearly outlying areas are going to be impacted, and I wonder, I know that there are nonprofit groups that are providing transit services and that we have contracts with those folks, and I wonder if we couldn't be working with some of these folks to ensure that we're picking up folks that may be falling through the cracks.
That definitely is an option. There are a number of not-for-profit groups that the RTC has reached out to in the past, and you have provided federal funds, both operating and, in some cases, actual buses, capital equipment for them to perform these types of trips for you. And their cost structure, since they have volunteers, is much lower than ours. And that's certainly something that we want to utilize as much as we possibly can.
Thank you. And I just think that it's really important that we take advantage of this outreach effort and hear from everyone that might be impacted.
Commissioner G?
Thank you. Do all local jurisdictions get CBDG money? Mm-hmm. But RTC does not qualify for any of that. But that may be something as we look this next year there may be some percentage that each of us could agree to put in to offset for some of those costs. I didn't just throw that out there as an idea, but that might be some, at least directed towards the nonprofits. And maybe this time we say we're going to only do a percentage of our grants to those that provide transportation, and then we can at least direct those dollars. And that might be a way to fill some of those gaps. I don't know, I'd throw that out there just as an idea. So.
Mr. Chairman, if there are no other comments from the commission, there are a couple of points that I need to make to add to the record before the commission takes action, if you wouldn't mind.
I just want to thank John and his group for the work. Oh. We'd like to thank you guys from the board and for all the hard work. Mr. Snow?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to note that your Transportation Access Advisory Committee, which is a standing committee that you have, we had the working group come and make their recommendations to the TAC group, or your Transportation Access and Advisory Committee, we call them TAC. And TAC approved all of the working group's recommendations. And for the record, they also wanted to go one step further and to increase the base fare on paratransit from $3 to $4.50 over the next 3 years. And that is an option that the Fare Working Group did consider, but they chose not to recommend that, and staff also is not choosing to recommend that to you at this time. We have been fortunate, as Commissioner March has pointed out, our ridership on fixed route is now up, and it's up in a significant fashion. And I have sympathy for the concerns expressed by the Commission that a fare increase on fixed route may not be the right message to send right now, especially when our budget problems are primarily stemming from the increase in paratransit demand. So we're glad to see that the ridership is up and our revenue from ridership is up correspondingly. And we also should point out that sales tax revenue is up for several months in a row consecutively. We suspect this may be a very fragile economic recovery, however. We need to be cautious in that regard. But our financial position has improved since the last time the Fare Working Group met. And we do have an RTC Finance Committee meeting scheduled for March 22nd, and a number of you serve on that committee. We will have an update for you on our financial position at that point in time, because the $8.3 million hole that we had to fill is now smaller, and that is good news and something to keep in mind. But there's also another corresponding concern that our costs for fuel are going to be an issue. Now, you're all aware of the fuel hedging exercise that we have done, and we have saved several $1 million by doing so in recent years. However, right now we're paying about $2.41 a gallon for diesel fuel. If we were to pay on the spot market right now, it would be very close to $4. And so we have an issue with fuel because the fuel hedge is coming to an end in a few months. And so that is something that we need to be concerned about. And those are the concerns that I have that I wanted to share with you. We think that for the most part, the news is good economically, but it may be a very fragile recovery. We also we're in the process of replacing much of our paratransit fleet, and we still have the old, we refer to them as the Barbie coaches that are the white, the pink, and the turquoise. We still have 40 or so of those that are out in the roads. Those need to be replaced, and our double-decker bus fleet now is approaching the point where we need to replace those vehicles as well. So there are issues that we do need to deal with. We are not out of the woods by any means, but at least things are not as dire as they were looking when we formed the Fare Working Group last year, and we would recommend to you that we begin the public hearing process to go through vetting this with the public so we can bring it back to you probably in May.
Commissioner G?
Mentioning the Barbies, like there's no Kens, I guess, but anyway, is it tied to mileage in use to replace those vehicles? I mean, are they still usable? And is it something we could explore at a discounted rate or something if we do more partnerships with nonprofits to assist with our paratransit side?
There always are options. We would not recommend to you that we continue the use of those vehicles, because what's going to happen is we can continue to use them, but our contractor costs are going to be an issue because the maintenance that will go into keeping those things running is
more so than what the
is
value.
more than what it would cost to
Do we
replace
just
them.
surplus them then, if that's the case?
That's what we've done for a long time, and that's what we would plan to do.
Because a lot of our old school buses actually wound up in Guatemala, and they used them forever. I mean, I used to ride, you don't even want to know what I used to ride. But, and so we should always look at the life of a vehicle. If the maintenance cost supersedes that, then that's a different story. But I think that that's something that I'd like to know more about as far as how that works, or, you know, who buys them then when we surplus them, if that's the case.
Let me just add one issue. I would add operations and maintenance into that category as well, because these old Barbie buses use diesel fuel, but we're proposing to replace them with compressed natural gas-powered coaches. And MJ, can you inform the commission on what the difference in cost is right now between the equivalent of a gallon in therms for compressed natural gas?
We'll be the equivalent therm for CNG is 60 cents versus what we our budget $2.50, $4. So
Wow.
it's considerable.
That is
considerable savings.
Plus, it's better for the environment then, so,
Yeah.
okay. Just thinking where we might find some potential, so, okay. Maybe we can go buy somebody else's surpluses that really aren't as bad as ours, I don't know.
Okay, is there any other questions of staff?
We don't necessarily need a motion, but if you want to give us direction, a motion would be fine, but if you want us to give us direction to start the public process, would that be fine, Zeb?
Yeah, that's fine. A motion's not legally
Okay.
required, but you can certainly do one if it's such your desire.
Without objection, I would just say give direction to staff to start the public process, and that we would intend at the May meeting to take up the matter on the fare issue.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Your next item is item 28, which is to discuss confidential matters related to the Service Employees International Union contract negotiations with management. But I would like to point out that you may want to consider taking the following item, which would be your second citizens' participation, and hearing that now, since you have the option of going into closed session for item 28. And if you were to take the citizens' participation item now, then people who didn't want to wait wouldn't have to wait, and you could just come back out after item 28 to dismiss the meeting.
I think that's a great recommendation. Okay. We'll go to our second and final citizen participation. Is there anybody who has a desire to speak to the Regional Transportation Board? State
Hi,
your name and
my name
address,
is
please.
John Meters. I live at 7809 Rain Shower Drive, and I just came down to say, Jacob, good luck in Henderson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Farlow, 240 North 19th Street. I've got several items here. Number one, that the trail that goes by that new building project at Santa Barbara and Tropicana, that thing is still closed off. Those people had no permission to close that trail to begin with. That was over 3 months ago that I was complaining on that. They put the sewer line right under the trail without any permission that I can see. And it's a deeper problem that goes to this. We can build all the new trails we want, but if we don't maintain the old trails and let them slack, we're going to end up with the same situation that we have with the trail that goes under the 95, where they've encroached on this trail to the point where it's basically almost unusable. In fact, it is unusable from Mesquite to Casino Center. But that's a problem. We have to keep on top of this. I complained to Commissioner Scow's office, nothing there. But you've got to hold these people to their feet to the fire on this. The second thing I'd like to point out is this. Instead of making these maps need to be updated, the bicycle maps. And instead of printing them on the heavy paper, I think that you ought to print them on newsprint, because you can get a bigger map and it's a lot cheaper. And throw them in maybe some of the weekly flyers and that, so everybody gets an idea of what we're doing. Because this map right here doesn't have any of the new bike stuff that's been done in several years. But But it'd be cheaper, and it'd put everybody, it'd let everybody know what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Patricia Anderson. I'm going to try to make it brief. I know normally I try to talk long, but I'm trying to make it short. The drivers are complaining about the recovery time. They don't have enough recovery time. 10 minutes is not enough time for these drivers. And these drivers need more time. I mean, they're fantastic. The traffic, Las Vegas is getting bigger and it's growing more. And people are driving, so quite naturally, they need more time. When they get to an end of the stop, they need at least a little bit more time for recovery time. Number two, as far as their concern is their money is concerned. They need to get back their lunch money. I mean, they don't have any lunch hour. I mean, like New York City has an hour. Each driver in New York City has 1 hour lunch hour. So they don't, if you have every 1 hour, you would, the stops would stop, everything would go. So I think that you give them back their $265 back in their pay. That would be my suggestion. What they're doing now is marking up the bus stops. The bus stops, I brought this to attention before. It's horrible. I mean, you're putting all this money into these bus stops, and they're destroying them. The bus stops, I was on a lot of bus stops. I talked to Ramona yesterday, what have you, a lot of times, and believe you me, they're making the bus stops as bathrooms. It's ridiculous, horrible. And Charleston and McMead and Washington, they all need to power wash them. Forget about putting the new bus stops up. That would be my suggestion. Put the money somewhere else because these people are destroying. They don't care. I would like to bring back some of the routes. I would like the routes like the 207, please don't take that away. To 213, people really need that. They're really, they're walking down that, I live on Penwood, so walking down that street, if you had to go down there or if you walk around, it was a very convenient bus. I know it wasn't that many ridership. I understand what you had to do, but if you can bring that back, it would be great. The bus drivers are good. They have very good bus drivers. They are really fantastic, and they need a little bit more time, and they're a little bit frustrated. Okay, take care and have a good, nice weekend.
Thank you, Patricia. Is there anybody else who has a desire to speak to the RTC board?
Angela Nelson, Outdoor Promotions General Manager, responding to Mrs. Anderson. Just wanted to review real quickly with our power washing situation, mentioning our requirements per our contract, which is once per month or as needed. And we certainly want to do better than once a month, and we do try to get there as needed or before. We currently have 4 power wash trucks out on the streets. One is dedicated solely to the Strip, 1 dedicated solely to the new express routes, and 2 dedicated to the general market. With 2,600 shelters, it's a lot of work to be done, and we try to keep up. We're doing the best we can right now. We currently have 25 staff members dedicated solely to maintenance and cleaning of the shelters, and 2 of those were recently added when the express routes were completed, so we hope to do a better job than has been done in the past. The stops of concern that you mentioned, Mrs. Anderson, were on our recent inspection report and are being addressed as we speak. Let me see what else I wanted to say. And just on a side note as well, with the last 2 days and the high winds, just want to caution the general public that you will see extra trash and dirt out there. Note that with our current schedule, it will take us about 7 to 10 days to catch up on that mess that the wind has created. But we're on it, and we're aware of the concerns and are working very diligently to meet the requirements of our contract and the public as we speak. Thank you.
Angela? You got a question on Commissioner G?
Thank you. It's been looking much better, and I think with the new stops going in, actually having trash cans has made a big difference. She's right. I was just commenting we should outlaw gum, but
we agree.
Yeah, I know it's just a mess. But I'm wondering if we could look into a community program of a steward for a shelter, or maybe work with the schools to have shelters near school bus stops that the kids adopted from student council or something along those lines. and create a stewardship program. Number one, you'd be engaging those young people into going, maybe I could ride the bus, and actually help with assisting with cleaning up. So I just throw that out there. Maybe we could take a look at that through Workforce Connections, or the school district has that new mentorship program. Maybe we can coordinate something that way. Second thing is, on the trails, we were able to get a grant, but I stole it from the city of Las Vegas, so thank you, Lois. Not the grant. I didn't steal the grant, the idea. What we did we had certain trails that were really, even Metro didn't want to deal with because of problems. And so we got a grant to install those cameras that if they see you coming up, they go, excuse me, what are you doing here, type thing. And maybe we could take a look at seeing if there's another additional grant that we take a look at for our targeted stops that are being more vandalized or more impacted. And sometimes that becomes a deterrent in and of itself. And I'm not a big fan of cameras invading people, but this has been one where it acknowledges that you're probably doing something you shouldn't be, gives you, voice comes out and actually speaks, and it's been working pretty well. So I just throw that out there. Maybe we can explore that for some of those targeted shelters, because we know which ones get messed with more often than not.
Sure, and we are doing some of those programs. We are also working with Councilwoman Tarkanian's district with a local Boy Scout troop. We're trying to work it out where they can come actually into our warehouse and help us paint some of the shelters in her district and get them back out on the streets. The thing that we want to do is keep the children off the streets, obviously for safety reasons, so we want to be careful about how we do that. So we thought of the idea of bringing them into our warehouse, helping our guys paint, doing some community service work, and then getting them out there. So we're going to do that. We're working with her to do that. And then also recently we printed at our own expense posters to put out in both your district and Lois and Councilwoman Tarkanian's, because those were some of the problem areas where it says toss it in the can, place trash in the receptacles here, and our maintenance staff had noticed in those areas where we had those posters that actually it's starting to work. So we do have more of those in the works, and we'll start to spread those out in the community where we have available space, empty advertising space, to put those as well, because it does seem to be grabbing the attention of the riders and passersby.
Well, one thing that we could take a look at, and we have to look at the safety side, and I would have to make sure that there's no liability, but we use the detention kids a lot for part of their community service program. And so I'll double check with P&P and see, because we're doing a summer program. We got a JAG grant to be able to do something, so maybe we can augment. But I just think eyes and ears. If somebody adopted a shelter and they use it, or they pick up after it, or they're the steward of it, or these 4 bus lines on Route 109 or whatever it might be, that might just be kind of an intriguing way to, when we did the essays, that was phenomenal what those young people came up with, but we didn't re-tap that resource to say, okay, maybe we could have you become part of our community volunteer group or something along those lines. So I'll throw that out there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Councilwoman March?
Yes, as a Henderson resident, it is really my honor and pleasure to be able to acknowledge Jacob Snow and to tell him that we are all looking forward to him joining the city of Henderson. And I know that I'm persona non grata for a couple of days here, but you have really built a wonderful team here at the RTC, and we're very proud of the work that you've done here, and we look forward to you coming to Henderson as well.
Thank you so much.
Is there anybody else has a desire to speak to
Mr. Chairman?
Oh,
I did.
Councilwoman
Yeah.
Tarkanian?
I just wanted to say, I think, Chris, that's a good idea about maybe having a school adopt a shelter, and I think we're finding that rather than using the detention youngsters, which are it's very helpful to us, but when we involve those who are in the schools, they become part of the ownership of it, and it carries on, I think, in helping them to become better citizens also. And you could give them some recognition at a shelter. We have your little advertisement. You could say Clark High School, and so forth and so on, and I think that gives them a lot of pride in doing that. I also wanted to say it's been an enjoyment working with Mr. Snow, and I'm really appreciative that I had the opportunity, not for long enough, but I had the opportunity. Thank you for all you've done.
Thank you so much.
Except one thing, Mr. Snow, I just wanted to tell you, here's this lady talking about Route 207. Here we're talking about, we reached out, we have the project with the other people that work with us and getting our bus shelters repainted. And then what do you think happened? That project she discussed began with on Elta. And what do you think runs down Elta? 207. So, no, but we are finding others that we can do, but it just shows you how rapidly things occur. Thank you.
Mayor Tobler?
Well, just quickly, I wanted to thank Jacob. You've done a great job, and I think the comforting thing to us on the board is that you've surrounded yourself with some great people, and of course, we'll be able to go forward and move on, but I would hope that we would have you back to probably do a proper send-off. This kind of came kind of quick today, and Chairman Brown's not here, and I'm sure Moore would like to kind of weigh in and take some jabs at Councilwoman March over there for stealing you from us, but it's been a privilege working with you. You've done a great job.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and I'd be happy to come back as long as there's not a paddle in association with any send-off that you plan on giving. But the pleasure has been mine. Thank you.
I think Chairman Brown and Jacob and Susan all planned this out and left me chairing today.
Chairman Brown's son was graduating from boot camp, so he wasn't here yesterday or today, so. Otherwise, I would have agreed with you.
I also would like to thank Jacob. He's done an awesome job, and I'll keep some more of those other jabs and stuff for another day. But you have, and your staff's awesome.
Well, thank you. I know where you all live, too, so, and I have your cell phone numbers, so please plan on me contacting you, but in a polite, respectful manner, as the board has always treated me, which I'm very grateful for.
All right, is there other comments? Public hearing, we will recess.
I would take a motion to go into closed door to discuss NRS 241 or 288.
288.
288.